Hey guys, Bedrock Builder here. Wanted to show you my mega melon and pumpkin farm. I came up with this design after flying machine harvesters broke a few updates back, and I wanted to come up with something didn't rely on so many observers and pistons like I had seen in other farms. I'll show you inside here. It all runs off of a Ethos hopper clock. The more stackable items you add to these hoppers, the longer the interval in between the pistons firing. I found that about one stack works best. I ran it for a few half-hour periods. I have the results in the chest. This first pile up here was a quarter stack, or 16 items. This was a half stack, 32 items, and this was a full stack. So it looks like, we kind of got about similar results. You can play with it if you want, but about one stack seems to be working best. We have these strips here of alternating slime and honey blocks fired by the sticky pistons. Now keep in mind, you can trim this down to a smaller version. Just do the, what would that be? These 4 right here based off of the center module. Or you can expand it pretty much as far as you want. Bearing in mind, you'll have to play with the repeater timings if you go past this point. Because this is all firing on 1 tick right now, so if you add another repeater after this point, that'll be on 2 ticks, so you'll have to adjust everything back here to 2 ticks. Well, anyway, if you're adding that much more to this farm, you probably know what you're doing anyway. We have our water sources placed here along the side to make sure that all of the blocks stay waterlogged on the inside as well. Then I also have these light source blocks inserted along the strips to make sure everything grows well at night. Now to get everything going, it all winds up down here in this chest collected by the hopper minecarts down below. And if you want, you can also add in a composter down below to turn it into a bone meal farm as well. Again, flick that lever, unlocks the hopper, and we can start feeding the composter. Easy peasy. Anyway, so I got a couple of platforms set up over here, spaced 3 blocks apart. They are 7 by 38 each. With the power strips already laid in. Now, I used powered rails throughout, but you could probably trim it down and add some regular rails along the way, just adding a few power rails along these strips here. Now, to get started, we're going to go ahead and place in our chest. So throw in a double chest here. Then we're going to have hoppers going in on each side, 2 on each side. Making sure that they point into the chest. Then we're going to go ahead and throw down a block here, and now we're going to throw in a regular rail on top of the hoppers, there and there. Now a powered rail on top of the block. Now we're going to want a comparator. That's going to take a reading off of the hopper behind the block there. So when it gets items in it, it will power this block here, which will then power off this torch, which will then go into this block here, turning off, let's see, our repeater, which is going to go into another block on top of this comparator, which then powers the rail. So when the hopper minecarts come over this hopper here, it'll turn off the rail, allowing the carts to unload. So let's do the same thing on the other side. A block, a torch, a block on top of the torch, repeater coming out of that block into another block to power that rail. There we go. Now we can go ahead and lay in our tracks themselves. I'm going to have 2 regular rails on the edges, on each side, and then powered rails throughout in the middle. Like I said, you can play with how much power you actually need. You probably don't need this many powered rails. At the end, like I said, 2 regular rails, wrap it around. Now we're just going to bring it all the way back down to the other side. And we're going to do this up and down the platform until we get to the end. and it should end down at that end with the power block I have there, the redstone block. All right, once you have all those tracks installed, it should look like this. We have two regular tracks on each end on this side. These are mirror images of each other. Powered rails all the way down with regular tracks on the end here for 2 blocks on each side. With the exception of the end. When it runs into the power block at the end, it's going to be power rail all the way up to it to make sure it has enough speed to bounce back, especially if it's fully loaded. Sometimes the minecarts slow down when they have a lot of stuff in them. I guess they can get heavy, and they get slowed down when they're heavy. So once we have those blocks installed here on the end, we can go ahead and put in the minecarts. Make sure that everything's running properly. And once that's all up and running, we can go ahead and install our dirt platform. Now we're going to put that right above the tracks here, covering them completely, up and down. So I'm going to go ahead and put in these dirt platforms, and I'll catch you once I'm done. All right, now that our dirt platforms are installed, we want to put in a wall and our water sources. So we're going to come down here off the corner, place a block here, and what we're going to do is kind of do this pattern off the back. And this is just to add a couple of extra plants off the back here, off the side. So we'll do that on both sides. Placing in our blocks, making sure we get as many plants in here as possible. Now we can come down and just put in our wall around the side. And if you're building this on ground level, you want to make sure that you put in a fence or a wall or something to make sure that mobs don't wander in and get stuck in your farm or kind of mess things up. I know occasionally you'll have like chickens or pigs show up and they'll block the mine carts, or I don't know, lay eggs, and you got eggs in your farm. Anyway, put these blocks in here on the end and on the corners. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wrap our wall all the way down. All right, now that our walls are in, we're going to want to put in our water sources. So we're going to want to count 4 blocks down. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Then on the 5th, we're going to put in a water source here. So let's go ahead and put in some blocks to make sure everything stays dry down below. Let's not do that. Let's do this instead. That looks more like it, right? There we go. We can throw in our water and make sure that nothing's going to get soaked down below. So now we're going to count from this water source another 9. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to put in a water source here. I'm going to do the same thing. Make sure we have some space for it. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. Right? Did I do it? I think I did it. Beautiful. All right. Now do the same thing. 9 from this one down to the end, and then we're going to have to, I think, just add an extra one just to cover. Let's see. We got a 1 at the end here, just spaced a few blocks apart, just to make sure we have all coverage. Now we're going to do that on all sides and on the middle as well, counting out the same amount of blocks. So they should have water sources spaced out at equal intervals throughout, with one close one here on the end. I'm going to go ahead and put those in and catch you once everything's all soaking wet. Okay, now that our water sources are in place, it should look like this. I went ahead and put glass blocks over them so they're a little bit easier to see, and trimmed them down a little bit, took down the blocks underneath because didn't need those. What we can do now is install the glass strips that we're going to be using to actually crush the pumpkins and melons themselves. So what we're going to do is cover these strips 1 block up with glass running all the way down. So we're going to want this running alternately in between the plants. Here we go. And I use glass because it makes it a little easier to see when the plants are growing. I like seeing what's going on, but you can use any solid block here that you want, really. And then we're also going to install light sources in these strips to make sure that everything grows well at night. Because we want to make sure that our crops are growing 24/7, right? Rain or shine, day or night, our crops will grow. Some kind of slogan. All right, let's get these last two put in. Oh, man. Horrible with block placement lately. My controller fell down, and it's kind of wonky lately. It just creeps and crawls on its own. Should probably get myself a new one. All right, once we have these strips installed, we're going to put in our slime and honey blocks, 6 each in alternating pattern. Let's see, honey and slime. So 6 honey, and then 6 slime. And we're going to do this all the way down on all the strips in the same pattern. Okay, that's all the honey and slime put in place. Now we're going to want to have sticky pistons on top of these. I go in, well, pretty much close to the middle as you can. Go ahead and put a couple of temporary blocks in, and we want this piston facing down. We're going to need to have 1 piston on each 6-block segment, just like so. And we're going to do this all the way down for all of the strips that we have here. Probably going to speed this part up too. Okay, now that all the sticky pistons are in place, let's go ahead and put a light source underneath them. You don't need to do this over the farm itself. You can have lights off to the side, torches or something like that. But I like having the direct overhead lighting kind of built into the whole system. And I think it looks kind of cool. I'm a big fan of glowstone. Not such a big fan of sea lanterns. Kind of have that cold blue light going on. And, you know, the glowstone has that warm amber light, or at least so I think. Certainly wish we had more lighting options in Minecraft when it comes to whole blocks. I'm excited to hear that we will be able to place lit jack-o'-lanterns against walls and on ceilings like normal blocks soon. No longer have to place them on top of something, which has always been kind of a weird requirement for them because they are a great light source block alternative. All right, that side's done. Let's go ahead and put a few more in over here. And then we're going to go ahead and put in the hopper clock that runs this whole thing. Like I said, I was experimenting with different intervals. I went from a quarter stack up to, I think, 3 stacks total. Started seeing diminishing returns after that. So 1 stack seems to be about right. One thing to keep in mind is that you will have a little bit of a lag spike every time this thing fires. So the bigger that you make it, the laggier it's going to get. So if you have it firing, pretty frequently, you're going to have those lag spikes pretty frequently too. And like with any of these types of farms that has a minecart or something running all the time, you want to check occasionally, make sure the game didn't forget about your minecart or make it disappear, because it seems to be a problem with a lot of farms that have minecarts or components that run all the time. The game's just like, hey, that's gonna forget about that. It's gone. Yeah, it's just gone. All right, so we got our lights in. What we can do now is, like I said, we're gonna install that I think it's called an Ethos hopper clock, based on the guy who originally came up with it. I got rid of my observer somehow. I need that observer. Come back to me. All right, we're done with this. Anyway, we're going to pick a spot somewhere here in the middle. Let's see. This looks like the middle here. I'm going to put down, let's see, 4 blocks. And we're going to have 2 hoppers running into each other. Place one down temporarily. Put this one going into it. Get rid of that one. And then put another hopper facing into that one. So they face into each other. Now we want to have comparators coming off the back of each. They're going to run into a block. On top of that block, you're going to want to put a piece of dust. And in front of that dust, we're going to want to have a sticky piston. Let's see, I'll put that there. Come here, sticky piston. All right, put that right on that dust there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Have this comparator go into a block. Piece of dust on top with a sticky piston coming off of that there. Now we're going to want to have a redstone block in front of one of these pistons. Now once we add something to these hoppers, it's going to start the clock. So we're going to go ahead and throw on a lever to keep everything shut off. Now we'll add a stack of any stackable item you don't mind getting rid of. Some just expendable stuff. So now what we want to have is a observer facing down on the clock. Now we're going to run some blocks off the side of this observer all the way down to the end of our piston lines here. So right up to these pistons on this end. And do the same thing on the other side. And of course, since the farm is symmetrical, we're going to have to do it on this side as well. All right, there we go. One last run. Now to finish wiring this up, we want to grab some glass. Now this has to be glass because you don't want any solid blocks over your plants, otherwise they will not grow. So, glass blocks in between all of these here. Get everything all connected up. See how our plants growing? Are they? We have some mature plants yet? Are we gonna be able to farm something by the end of this? Doesn't look like it. They grow pretty darn slow. Maybe we can help them out with some bone meal or maybe speed things up by changing the random tick. I'm going to head over and see how the original farm's doing in a little bit. It's been running for a little while now. And, you know, in my survival base, I actually have this with just slime blocks. I completely spaced out that you can have honey blocks and slime blocks connecting, and it won't overload them. They won't connect, so that's kind of awesome. So this is sort of an upgrade from the one I actually have in my own base. Now to link this all up, what we're going to do is throw in, well, let's just throw in our repeaters first. One repeater for these 2 down here. One repeater for each of these lines. And then we'll have 2 more repeaters all the way down here at the end. Now all we got to do is string them all up with redstone all the way down, all the way across. Now you want to make sure these repeaters stay on 1 tick. You don't accidentally hit them, because if this thing gets out of sync, it kind of becomes a mess. You just have to break some glass to make it work again, essentially. Oh, I think I hit that one by accident. Yep, I did. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Don't do that. It gets messy. All right, I'll finish stringing these up. Now, if you wanted to save a piece of dust, you could always throw a block in on the end instead. But, you know, I don't mind. I'm in creative. And even in my survival world, I don't think I'm hurting for redstone dust at the moment. All right, we got this side all wired up. Let's go ahead and Here we go. Almost done. That should do it. Everything's all wired up. Everything's ready to run. We flip that lever, and the whole thing should fire. Well, let's go ahead and speed this game up a little bit just to see it in action. Let's see. I need to go to this one here. I got it. There. Random tick speed. Let's crank it up to, I don't know, 1,000. That should get some stuff going, right? There we go. We got plants. Beautiful. All right, let's slow it back down. Reset. There we go. Now, if we flip this lever, oh my gosh, that's a lot of pumpkins fast. Goodbye, pumpkins. Oh, we gotta wait for the hopper to transfer over and put in some dust there. That should do it all. No? Oh, there we go. That's a whole that's a whole lot of squashed pumpkins at once. I'm not sure the minecarts are going to be able to handle that. Anyway, you get the basic idea. The more stackable items you have in these hoppers here, the longer that interval is going to be. I guess it was longer than I thought it was going to be. But once everything's up and running, you should start collecting yourselves all kinds of pumpkins and melons down below. These guys like to show up, and oh, there we go. Go mess everything up, you pig. Pumpkins and melons will just kind of keep springing up. The hopper mine carts will keep collecting them, and as long as you're around, the system will keep working. And like I said, if eventually your chests fill up and you have all the compost or bone meal that you want, you can turn it off and let the field fill up and come back later when you want to. So there you go. That's the Mega Melon and Pumpkin Farm. Hope it works well for you in your world. If everything works out, let me know in the comments section. If you have some problems, also let me know in the comments section. I'd like to get back to you. Take care for now. Keep making the pumpkin pie.